Good afternoon, everyone. We'll call the 10th meeting of the Planning and Environment Committee to order. Please check the city website for additional meeting detail information. The City of London is situated on the traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenape-Wauk, and Attawadron. We honor and respect the history, languages, and culture of the diverse Indigenous people who call this territory home. The City of London is currently home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit today. As representatives of the people of the City of London, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and live in this territory. The City of London is committed to making every effort to provide alternate formats and communication supports for meetings upon request. To make a request specific to this meeting, please contact pecbec@london.ca or 519-661-2489 extension 2425. I'll look for any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Seeing none, we'll move to consent items. Councillor Stevenson has requested 2.1 be pulled, so we will deal with that down in the deferred matters additional business. I'll just look to see if anyone else wants anything else pulled or a motion to accept the remaining consent items. Deputy Mayor Lewis, you're making a motion to staff recommendation. Councillor Cuddy has seconded, and I'll open the floor for conversation. Anything from visiting councillors? I'm seeing none. Councillor Rahman.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief, but I'm pleased to see the withdrawal in 2.3 of the request by the trustees of the London Congregation of the British Methodist Episcopal Church.
Yeah, thank you. I don't see anyone else indicating they'd like to speak, so we have motion moved in second, so we'll call the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, moving on to scheduled items. First item is 3.1 regarding 415 York Street. I'll look for a motion to open the public participation meeting. Councillor Cuddy moves it, seconded by Councillor Stevenson, and we'll call that vote.
Closing the vote is 5-0.
Thank you. So I'll look, see if the applicant would like to address the committee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Mike Davis with Civic Planning and Design. Here on behalf of our client, BSN London Corporation. We're before the committee today requesting an additional deferral of this application. Our client has retained a consultant to prepare the required compatibility study to deal with the proximity to London District Energy. There is, I will say, a very specialized expertise required for this study and a very narrow consulting pool here locally of folks who can complete that study. So the consultant has been retained. We would anticipate that study being completed within 12 to 16 weeks, at which time staff would need to review that study as would affected agencies, and then it ultimately be brought back to Planning Committee. So our request today is a deferral until early 2027, kind of at the latest. If things wrap up before that, we would certainly be keen to bring it back to committee, but that's our request today.
Okay, thank you. I'll look for any other members of the public like to address the committee. Please, ma'am, give us your name. You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sarah Turney. I'm legal counsel for London District Energy. And I'm here with instructions to support staff's report and their recommendation to refuse the development. But frankly, this is the first that I have heard that there has been a consultant that's been retained. And I think it's important for me to make that submission to you, because despite repeated requests to the applicant, we have had no consultation at all. by the proponent. And I've personally reached out multiple times, and I think that's important that the committee know, because in order to do accurate modeling, the proponent needs to speak to us. And otherwise, they're able to use some data, but they're not going to have the most accurate data available. So I am surprised to hear that this is the submission being made. However, setting that aside, there are a few things that I think are important for the committee to take into account. So as I'm sure the committee knows, the London District Energy Facility is located directly across from where the proponent is proposing to develop. There have been to date no noise or vibration studies provided to you that would give you the information you need to determine whether this application is going to be compatible with the existing development, including the LDE facility. Now, that's important from a legal perspective because the Planning Act requires that council determine compatibility at this stage. Now, previously, the applicant had requested a hold to sort of deal with the LDE facility and requested that you approve the application subject to that hold. Now, what I'm hearing now is a deferral request, and certainly that's welcome if we're being consulted and there's meaningful consultation so that there is good data being provided to council. But otherwise, if there isn't going to be good data provided to you, then you're not able to discharge the duty of ensuring that there is compatibility before a zoning bylaw is approved. A hold, unfortunately, my respectful submission to you is not sufficient and is not appropriate from a planning perspective. And the reason I say that is because a hold is appropriate where the underlying zoning fabric has been established to be appropriate. So the density is appropriate, the height is appropriate, the use is appropriate, but there's some distinct issue like water not being available to the lot line. Okay, those are circumstances where you approve the zoning, but you say, proponent, you can't develop until you fix that small issue. Here, what had been submitted to you was an application with a hold, and really the hold was being used to defer the studies that you need to make a proper decision under the Planning Act. And so right now, without any information about who's being retained or whether we're going to be consulted or the type of study you're going to receive, in my respectful submission, it is within your power and would be most appropriate for you to refuse the application. However, if you are inclined to defer, again, I would stress the importance of asking the applicant to reach out to London District Energy because we want to speak to them. We want to give them sufficient information to be able to do appropriate studies because as an energy provider to the city, we are not against development. It's in LDE's business interest to see the downtown thrive and develop, but it has to be appropriate, compatible development. So subject to any questions that you have, those are my submissions to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look for other members of the public who'd like to address the committee. I'll ask the clerk if there's anyone online. There's nobody online. I don't see anyone approaching the microphone, so I'll look for a motion to close the PPM. Councillor Cuddy, seconded by Councillor Stevenson, and we will call the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, I'll put this item on the floor for committee members. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I've just sent the clerk an email with the language, but I'm prepared to move a referral to allow the applicant to complete and submit to staff the D6 land use compatibility study. So I've sent the clerk some draft language. I hope that captures it, and we'll see if there's a seconder for that.
Okay, I'll check with the clerks, see if she can get that up on there. So you're moving that, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I'll also add in the, it being noted that we received the delegations and the communication from the Midtown Community Association.
Okay.
Put it all in one.
Got it. So I see Councillor Stevenson has indicated she will second that motion. I'm going to wait till it gets up on eScribe, and then I'll go back to you, Deputy Mayor, for comments. Okay, it should be up on eScribe right now, so if you want to just check that out to make sure that's your intention.
Yes, that captures it.
Okay, great. So, Councillor Stevenson, you okay with that?
Yeah, there is just a duplicate wording in there. It says for the applicant to allow the applicant, and maybe.
Thank you. We got that covered. Thank you. Okay, Deputy Mayor, I'll go to you.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, it was outlined in the staff report that the D6 study had not been received. I think it's perfectly reasonable for staff to be saying we can't consider approval, regardless of the other items in the report, that we couldn't make a determination on that without that report coming forward. And I do recognize, and I know this to be true, it's not just the applicant saying so from the gallery, that getting one of these studies done is a bit of a specialized skill set. There's not a lot of people who will undertake this kind of work readily available. And when you do retain them, it can often be weeks or months before they're actually able to start the project. So hearing that they've retained, and they did put that in writing to us, so I'm willing to allow them a little bit more time. We've referred it once, and to me, while I hear London District Energy raising concerns, and setting aside concerns I have with them, that's between two private companies. And what I've also seen here is some genuine interest from the community, not to oppose it, but to actually be supportive of it. So I don't want to refuse this at this time. I want to give this a little bit more time to work through the D6 process, see what comes back from that, and then make a determination at that time.
Thank you. I'll look for other comments, questions. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll just say I'm happy to support the referral, and a thank you to the Midtown Community Association for their advocacy and support of this development.
Thank you. I'll look for other. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me. I'm not part of this committee, but I appreciate a follow-up question that I have on the referral here. Given what I've heard from the public participation meeting, in particular from London District Energy, to undertake a D6 land use compatibility study, would they need to reach out to London District Energy? Not sure who can answer that question.
I'll go to the applicant. Councillor is asking your willingness to reach out. Sorry about that. London District Energy and
Not sure if that's me. There.
consultation.
Sounds good. Through you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about the technical difficulties there. Yeah, absolutely. It's not my specific area of expertise, but whatever is required within the scope of that study will be completed. Certainly, London District Energy will be consulted through this process. They're a required agency that the city must circulate on planning applications. Whether it is necessary to coordinate with them prior to submission of the study, that would be up to the consultant to determine within their scope of work, but certainly have heard that there's a willingness to share data. If that's the process that needs to happen, they'll be happy to do that.
Councillor.
Good to know. Thank you.
Councillor Tressa.
Thank you very much. Similarly, I'm not a member of this committee. I'll try to keep my comments short. I will be voting for this at council, but not here. As I see what's in front of me right now, I will not be supporting this referral at council. I don't understand why we would think that there's going to be a better effort at consultation with the affected parties here. And I really don't believe that this is just a private dispute between two parties. I think that the points that were raised in the Fasken letter, I found were very well taken. I don't see any reason to doubt the claims that they're making there about the continued failure to demonstrate compatibility. And I think under the planning framework, the best solution here is to simply deny this application right now, which of course is always without prejudice for them bringing it back. There's no preclusion, there's no estoppel here that would bring them back, that would allow them to bring this back, but after the proper study is done. During the term of this council, I've often made the observation, that the application really shouldn't be complete until these types of necessary studies have been done. And I think assigning the heavy lifting here to the provisions of holding provisions over charges and surcharges and goes beyond what the purpose of holding provisions is supposed to be. But then again, this was, I think, very clearly set out in the presentation that we just heard from council. So I think the more prudent course of action here, understanding that refusing this now is without prejudice, I would want to deny this, refuse this application. I hear what the residents of the area are saying. We cannot continue to carry this lot as a very, very blighted and dangerous looking hole in the ground. We need to develop here, but that doesn't mean we can take liberties with the public safety, which is what I think we'd be doing here if we push this ahead. So again, with all due respect to those that want to just give this more time, I think the best course of action is to refuse the application, and I'll be doing that at council. Thank you.
Councilor Frank.
Thank you. And I may have missed it, but I just want two questions through the chair to staff. The first being, since this is another referral, does this mess with the timelines and essentially could be taken to the OLT for a non-decision? Maybe I missed it at the beginning, sorry.
I'll go to staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the 120-day timeline for an official plan amendment has already passed with the first referral back, so it's already past the 120 days, so this would just push it further beyond that.
Councilor.
Thank you. And again, sorry, I missed the first 5 minutes of the meeting. Did the applicant say that they're going to not take us to OLT for this non-decision at this point?
The applicant didn't make any reference to that, but I'll go to the applicant on that concern.
Can you hear me? There we go. Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, absolutely. The commitment is that no appeal for non-decision will be made. The deferral is simply to allow for completion of the study, at which point we would report back to this committee and bring this to an ultimate conclusion, one way or the other.
Councilor.
Thank you, appreciate that. And then my final question is to staff. So I notice on the recommendation for refusal, there are 8 different reasons to recommend refusal, one of them being the province's D6 guideline land use compatibility assessment. I'm wondering if that assessment submitted to staff, if the remaining 7 other reasons for refusal will likely still stand.
I'll go to staff.
Thank you. Through the chair, the other reasons largely related to the proposed height. Staff have recognized that we're supportive in principle of development of this site subject to the appropriate compatibility studies being undertaken, but not necessarily to the extent that the applicant is proposing. So depending on the outcome of the study as well as the proposed development that comes forward after that's been undertaken, the expectation from staff is that we'd want to have some additional discussions surrounding the building height as well. Depending on the outcome of those discussions, the recommendation could be the same, but again, it's unknown until we receive the revised application.
Councilor.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Rahman.
Thank you. And just following up on Councilor Frank's great questions. The OLT, what we heard is the verbal submission just now from the applicant on not taking us to OLT for non-decision. Does a verbal submission at a meeting like this amount to something that we can actually hold legally binding?
I'll go staff.
Thank you. Through the chair, the applicant would still retain the right to appeal non-decision, notwithstanding their verbal commitment not to.
Counselor?
Thank you, and through you. So I'm just wondering also, just trying to get a sense, because we hear a lot of things in these meetings, and sometimes they're said verbally. What kind of a commitment should we assume when someone on behalf of an applicant speaks to an application on a particular matter, like we just heard on the OLT decision? Should we assume that that is something that we should hold? I guess I'm trying to get a sense of, is that something that we should hold as an opinion? Is it something that we hold as a submission from the applicant? Because it's past so when we do these meetings, the applicant has a time to provide their submission, and then there's a back and forth that's happening in questions. And sometimes I don't know if that is actually part of the submission or if that's just a question, and whether or not that's held as part of the submission. And it's getting a little bit blurry for me when we have that back and forth. So I'm just trying to get an understanding, because that's what we heard the last time as well, is that this wouldn't be held to a decision. And I couldn't make my decision based on the verbal submission. We received a written submission in between. I suspect that that might be coming as well. For me, this is a decision where we have to consider what the timeline is. We already gave an extension to Q2 2026, which is why this report is back in front of us today. I think that hearing what we've heard from Faskins, I think that it makes sense that at this point we refuse the application. The applicant is free to come back and bring another application. I hear the Midtown community. I agree that there needs to be some sort of development, but at this time, I don't see enough movement to support a referral.
Thank you. I'll look for other comments or questions. Counselor Stevenson.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up to the concerns around the OLT, we've got the applicant making the request that we refer it. And my understanding is the D6 study is a requirement of the province, and so it wouldn't make sense that they would go and appeal the decision. If I could just get input from staff, that'd be great.
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, staff can't really comment on the validity of an appeal. That's the applicant's prerogative if they choose to go down that avenue.
Counselor?
Okay, thanks. It's not a concern of mine, given that they don't have the information that's provincially required, and it's a delay due to the specialized expertise. So I'm not concerned about it at all.
Okay. Counselor Trusso, just a second. I'm just going to see how much time you have left on that. Counselor, you have 2.5 minutes. Go ahead.
This will be very short. The fact that there are other good reasons to support the refusal at the OLT doesn't satisfy my worry that the OLT may simply look at this as a very simple, you failed to meet the timeline and you're out. And I don't understand why this wasn't put in writing. Am I wrong, and maybe I should ask counsel, if you could do this? I don't want to go into a closed session for a simple procedural answer, but is it true that when a decision is appealed to the OLT on the grounds of lack of time, that's sort of a procedural, almost quasi-jurisdictional issue that they have to dispose of first?
I'll go staff.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So an appeal for non-decision is just one path to the tribunal. there isn't necessarily any preliminary issue or assessment that needs to occur from the tribunal in order to proceed to a hearing on the merits.
Counselor?
Through the chair, but as there's no requirement, it is a risk that whoever the board member who is sent down to deal with this would look at that and say, well, I don't really need to get into a lengthy hearing on the other questions. It's almost like a summary judgment. It's almost like a just a simple way of avoiding extended litigation, which is always in the interests of judicial economy at any quasi-judicial agency. So I'm very worried about this, but even if I wasn't worried about this, I'm really more worried about the safety issues that are involved here. But I don't think that we should be taking a lot of solace from the fact that something's been asked for not in writing. And it doesn't change my position. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll look for any other speakers. Counselor Ferrer.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Listening to the discussion, it does remind me of the discussion we had a few months back. I am looking at the motion that was approved at committee and at council in January, and I do see that we have paths to approval, including how to proceed with respect to London District energy matters, and I do believe that we spoke about making some type of study with respect to the emissions and the compatibility there at that discussion. And I do see now that this is a referral that's specifically calling out that land use compatibility study. So I just wanted to know with staff, has this discussion between the proponent and LDE for the compatibility study has that already, I guess, been initiated, or is that still yet to come?
I'll go with staff.
Through you, Chair, that is yet to be initiated.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you. And from the, I guess from the path to approval motion that we had at the last discussion, that wasn't initiated then. So we're looking at a referral now. We're looking to push it down a little bit later to have that initiated. I was wondering if we could maybe go to the proponent or to staff, whoever can answer this question on what has changed from then till now.
I'll go to the applicant.
Through you, Mr. Chair, and to the ward councillor. The previous deferral, it was definitely intended for the applicant to explore potential paths to approval, further discussion on the London District energy issue. It's become very clear, obviously, through communications from London District Energy with city staff through this report, that really the only path forward is to complete that D6 study now. And just to refresh council's memory, normally this is something that would be required as part of a complete application. It was not actually flagged. It was only flagged very late in the process, or else the application wouldn't have gotten to this point. Staff would not have accepted this as complete. The issue was essentially kind of missed, and that's why we ended up at the last planning committee it was late in the game that we understood this concern, and so that has contributed to the timeline here. The intention now is to complete the study and report back with fulsome information to council.
Councillor?
All right, thank you for that. I believe PEC and council, we did discuss the compatibility study or anything, something about that at the discussion. For the compatibility study specifically, that will not only be a study whether this type of development would be appropriate, but also would that study speak to the height request that we see in the application?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, the findings of the study could have implications on the height, depending on air quality emissions and things like that. So the issue does kind of go hand in hand, but there is a secondary issue with the height, and that staff had concerns with the appropriateness of the proposed height. So while they are separate, they are interconnected in some way.
Councillor?
Okay, thank you for that. So I do believe that this is the appropriate path to get that study. I would say that we did discuss this previously, but if we are now seeing a motion that specifically identifies that, that'd probably be appropriate. I do want to see the area have a better use than what it is right now. I just want to make sure that that area is used in a way that is appropriate with the way we build, appropriate with both the heights as it's allowed in the area, and also with respect to the emissions coming from LDE. So the study itself, from what I understand, will be both the applicant and London District Energy working together on the study, and then that will be coming back for a potential report in the future, and then we would rediscuss this at a future meeting. And that's a question.
Who is that a question to?
It's a question to staff.
Okay, I'll go to staff.
Through the chair, that's correct. The applicant would have to undertake this study before we could consider bringing it back. That said, I do want to flag that given the upcoming election and scheduling of PEC, it's likely that the earliest that this could come back to PEC is December 1st. Again, I also want to flag that this will be the second referral back, and given the staff time that's going to be involved in reviewing this technical study, it may be more appropriate, and staff actually recommend that a new application be submitted, because there could be substantial changes to the proposed development as a result of the findings of this study, as I mentioned or alluded to before, that could have impacts on the proposed building height. So we could see a substantially different building design or proposal come from the findings of this study. And so for that reason, given the circumstance, a new application is warranted here.
Counselor.
Okay, thanks. So I believe that this could have been resolved in the past, and this would have helped with the applicant, with the individuals residing in the area, with council, and with our time and with staff's time. However, I do see that we're on a better path now, so I'm not a voting member of this committee, so when council comes, I will have my decision on whether to support the referral or not at the time. But just, I do know that we did speak to these items at the original committee meeting, and we did request these items at the original committee meeting. So those are my comments.
Thank you. Look for any further speakers. Seeing none, we have a motion moved and seconded. I will call the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, moving on to 3.2. This is regarding the 2027 Growth Management Implementation Strategy, known as GMIS update. So I'll look for a motion to open the public participation meeting. Councillor Cuddy, seconded by Councillor Stevenson, and we will call the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, I'll go to those that wish to address the committee. Please, sir, give us your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Mike Wallace. I'm here on behalf of the London Development Institute. Just briefly, we appreciate the process that staff go through on the GMS program every year. We are actively participating in that program as my members meet as a group with city staff and have then individual interviews. You can see the list there. So we don't always agree with what's being put forward or what's being put back, but it is a open process, which we do appreciate. I just want to make just 2 little remarks about there was a fair amount in here, first of all, on the DC issue, and we're in the midst of the process of reviewing the 2028 DC, but I just want to be clear that in the report it talks about 2 reasons why the DCs are a little bit behind where they were budgeted. One was market conditions, which we certainly agree with. The other one was the statutory discounts that have been required by the province. And we just want to be on the record that the province is requiring them, whether it's for affordable housing, for purpose-built rentals housing, which is great and has spurred on development in those areas. But the burden of making that up should not be on the development side. You need to continue to press the province to make you whole as they believe they guaranteed when those programs came in. You need to follow up on that, but I believe that's where that cash flow should be coming from and not on the backs of developers, which in turn is on the back of home buyers. And the other thing that I do appreciate staff give me a little bit of a heads up on that on 2.8.1, the Oxford wastewater treatment plant issues that you're having that were not discussed previous to our last GMS meeting with the staff, but was in this report. So it came as a little bit of a surprise that where there may be some issues with the Oxford plant, wastewater plant, being able to keep up with the development that is to support, and that staff are looking at solutions to making that happen. And we just want to be encouraging as much as possible staff to get on that issue and see if we can get that resolved so that it doesn't interfere with the future development plans that would be serviced by Oxford. But other than that, we understand the GMS program and the recommendations here that were put in front of us. Staff were very clear about these changes at the time, and I don't know. I don't want to say we support the the report, but we agree with what's in here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll look for other speakers. Please, sir, give us your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Sandy Levin. I'm going to focus as well, kind of as Mr. Wallace did, on the development charge side of it. Because it's unclear to me how's the city going to manage a few tens of millions of lower DC revenue through the federal Ontario program when the province, as he points out, still hasn't come up with the promised make good payment for the current statutory exemptions that this city and every other city in Ontario are absorbing. Because right now, if you take a look at your agenda, page 154, if my addition is correct, just for the City of London, the total shortfall, both provincial and the slowdown in development, has caused a shortfall of $250 million up to the end of 2025, and it's got to be starting to approach 300 during 2026. So yeah, only part of that is provincial, but when is the province going to reimburse every other municipality? And it's still not clear to me about the new program of when's the city getting its money back? Does it wait until the 3-year period? Does it only get it when the housing target's met? The concern is the impact, not just on development projects, but on city building projects. Council's already dealt with some of it through the budget process. Projects were delayed in 2026 budget, including library for the Southeast, library for the Northwest, and the traffic intelligence system to help close traffic. So what other delays are in the pipeline? Because that's how your staff is telling you how they're going to deal with it. And I assume we won't find out until the next budget. And I want to point out that in the report in front of you, this was the 3rd successive year where low-density residential starts were below forecast. And last year, 5% of the starts was low density. 5%. When Council at the end of 2025 passed an extension and an extensive extension of the urban growth boundary, predicated on 40% being low-density residential for a 30-year time period. Now, I won't be around in 30 years, but I'm not putting a bet down today to see how that's going to come out. So, supportive of what GMIS has done. GMIS has been around for 20 years. It's worked well, And the reason it came into play was similar kind of financial stresses on reserve funds related to development that came out in 2007. So I encourage council to continue this process and support the recommendation in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll look for other speakers. Please, sir, give us your name and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. My name is Charles Spina. I've been a Ward 5 resident since 1988. You know, I've looked at the GMS update as I have other GMS reports, and I come away with two impressions. One, a very favorable one. There's exquisite detail. If you want to know about the vacant land inventory, for instance, you go there. If you want to know about the UGB, you go there. If you want to know how building activity rather, is tracking against plan, you go there. But if you want to discern strategy to address the current crisis with regard to DC shortfalls, you have to discern it. And my attempts at discernment haven't gone very far. So I say this simply because the alarm was sounded by the assistant deputy or deputy city manager of another area on May 27th, brought into stark focus by Appendix A and C of her report, where she, on a pro forma basis, makes it quite clear that reserves are depleted. And in fact, if we continue on this development train with regard to infrastructure, unchanged, without a course change, we're going to be borrowing money, or we're going to the tax base to fund those projects. I also need to mention, it's not a mention, I think it's probably public knowledge because it came up in the really well put together report at the special council meeting that projects already commenced are ineligible for funding under this new provincial federal program. And it's as though Ottawa and Queen's Park is saying, okay, municipalities, you have the people, you have the payrolls, you get to place your own infrastructure bets. If you bet wrong, you're on your own. We're not going to cover those bets. So I believe that with all the good things that are going on in GMIS, this report has to go back or it's accepted with direction to take it to the next stage. Come up with a strategy, quantify it, that it will allow Ms. Barbin to go back to her schedules to demonstrate to committee and council how this crisis is going to be averted. Thank you.
Thank you. Look for other speakers. I'll ask clerk if there's anyone online. I don't see anyone else coming to the microphone, and there is nobody online, so I'll look for motion to close PPM. Councillor Stevenson, second. We'll call the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, I'll put this on the floor for committee members. Councillor Cuddy.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move the staff recommendation.
Okay, I'll look for a seconder. Deputy Mayor. The motion moved and seconded. I'll look for speakers. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you. Through you, I'd just be interested in an answer to the question that was just asked about coming up with a strategy and quantifying it in terms of addressing the shortfall. Through you to staff.
Yeah, so I'll go to staff. We did hear concerns raised that we've had pressures on our reserve fund from DC revenue falling short. Maybe if we can go to finance, or we can start with Mr. Mathers. Do we have a strategy in place, a short-term and long-term strategy to deal with those financial pressures?
Through the chair. So there's a couple of tools that we have to be able to manage growth and to be able to ensure that we're funding it appropriately. First and the most significant is our development charges background study. So that's a process that's moving forward right now. That's going to ensure that we have the appropriate funding to be able to, and we're charging the right rates, and we're getting that appropriate amount of funding to be able to ensure that development can proceed in the future. Between the development charge periods, we have the GMIS to be able to look at either advancing projects or pushing those projects into the future if we aren't having the appropriate amounts of revenue. So there's not a lot of tools in the toolbox to be able to make these adjustments, but the main adjustment that you can do is to either put a project, move it forward, or push it back if you need to. So as much as that, you could have a very other aspects of a strategy, which is I think what you've seen are included in the London plan, would be looking at different ways to develop. So that's why we have very strong policies around intensification and ensuring that we use the lands most appropriately we already have. So there's not a lot of tools that we have through GMIS, but they are significant. It is something that we use very often to be able to ensure that we have that funding and it's appropriately being used moving forward as well. So I'll just pass it to Travis and see if he has anything to add on that. But at the high level, as much as we'd love to have a 20-point strategy, the big tool you have is you can move a project forward or you can move it back in time.
Thank you, through the chair. So this was completed in coordination with Finance and the City's Development Finance Division. And this report also identifies the coordination with the City Treasurer's report. So going back and looking not only at future development and future pieces of infrastructure, but also in the life-to-date budget of what previously had been committed, if there are any infrastructure that was not going forward because of the pace of development. And there were a couple of those pieces that were identified this particular year. And then we also have development finance here if there's anything further.
All right, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I know other cities look at potentially financing the infrastructure rather than being in that position of we can either do it or we can't. We have to push it forward or delay. I mean, Londoners want to see our city grow and things are going to happen. And I hate to see us waiting until the funding is available. So I understand that's a big decision, but it is a decision, I believe, of council. And it'd be nice if that option or different strategies were quantified, as was said, and put before council to make those sort of big picture decisions. So I think I'm going to leave it there for now, but I do think to limit us to what's possible is leaving us in a place that we don't need to be.
I'll look for other speakers to this. If the committee will permit me, I'll just have a quick question from the chair. I think the financial side of things partially addressed. I share the concerns that the councillor raised. I think, at the end of the day, it comes down to the amount of debt that the city will entertain in maintaining as well our AAA credit rating. I just want to know, and just seeing that primarily through GMIS, there's been a number of projects that have been delayed, and that's how we're kind of addressing it from that standpoint. Can staff tell me if that's going to affect future housing? That's my biggest concern right now. Well, obviously, other than the financial, those are my two areas. But are we going to be impeding the availability of housing that we're looking to provide in our planning? Or is this recognizing the pace of housing or development that you're seeing?
Through the chair, absolutely. I think this is very much just impacting the pace. So we are lucky that we do have some capacity. There's some lands that are available and are serviced and can move forward. And then the development industry has been moving forward with those types of lands. We also have significant amounts of intensification projects, which have been very positive that we know that the development industry is also moving on. So I think there are many projects here and they will provide more housing in the future. But what we've heard from the development community and our own position as well is that this isn't going to impact that short-term amount of housing because we do have lands that are available and able to move forward and develop.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's a challenging time. I think as the senior levels of government are addressing the housing shortfall with statutory discounts, et cetera. We just went through that in the previous quick council meeting there, so we can get applications in for such. So it's challenging for our planning side, you folks, as well as our finance team to for projections into the future. I get that, but I think we have to really keep a close eye on this one. You know, even on a biannual basis to see how we're tracking, so we don't get into the soup, you know, 2 or 3 years down the road. I'll look for other, Councilor Primble.
Thank you, Sir Chair, to the staff. I do have a couple of questions. The first one is on the tables with the projected adjustments recommended by the staff. The first one on both pages is the stormwater for Sunningdale. Timing is 27, our recommendation is 29, developers' request is 28, and our staff is still saying 29. Can you please tell me how it goes in terms of the communication with the developers, and is it kind of that we say, okay, you want 28, we are going with 29, or is there actually a communication that at the end there's an agreement from both sides that 29 is acceptable, again, so we don't slow down the progress and the developments in that area?
I'll go with staff.
Through the chair. So there are one-on-one interviews conducted each spring as part of this annual review. And at the kickoff prior to those one-on-one interviews, we as city staff had a list of proposed deferrals based on the financial situation and the pace of growth this past year. There was some discussion with several developers about whether or not a 2-year deferral could be a 1-year deferral. But as was mentioned before, the ones where there is a deferral, there's no actual application on the site. So if it is land designated and we can make an assumption about, you know, when it would happen, the assumption was from the DC background study when it started. But if there's no actual application on the site, then there was a discussion of, you know, is it a 1 or a 2-year deferral? Since this process is done every year, if applications start coming forward, we can then look at the financial position come next spring, and certain lands that may have been deferred could also potentially be brought forward by a year. There isn't always, as Mr. Wallace said, there isn't always, you know, perfect agreement, but there is an understanding from them. And it is also something that can be adjusted annually as well.
Councillor.
Thank you, and I'm glad to hear that it could be still reevaluated, that if there is application that comes through, we can still revisit it. So thank you for that. In terms of the big picture, the the funding, and yes, it's about till 2025, we are looking at about a whole of close to $250 million. Do we have any information, or out of curiosity, how other municipalities deal with this? Because if I look at in our audit committee, which we did ask for comparative analysis with other municipalities' reserve funds, we actually have them the highest. So we are, if I look at other 4 municipalities, they are much lower. So if we are struggling or having this pressure in our municipality, how other municipalities deal with this, if we have that information?
I'll go staff.
Thank you very much to the chair. We've had several conversations with some of our municipal counterparts, and the general consensus is it's typically through project deferrals like we're doing. What's unique to London, though, is the GMIS process, which other municipalities do not have, where it directly links the pace of development with projects that directly impact new housing and construction, as an example. So that's unique to us. Others just have a general framework for deferring a project through the budgeting process, but again, GMIS is a unique tool. But in addition to that, like I mentioned, we also go through our network need projects, so non-GMIS projects, through the budgeting mechanism as well. Thank you.
Councillor.
Okay, thank you for that response. No more questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you. Just a couple of follow-ups to what I've been hearing. On ones where we aren't meeting the timeline of the developers, would it be a policy change that would be needed to say, you know, if the developers are asking for a certain timeline and we can't meet it, that comes through council for a final approval or something like that? I'm just interested in staff's thoughts on that.
I'll go staff.
Through the chair. So there is the option of front-ending agreements, in which case, if the project is within the next 5 years, if an applicant wants to advance it themselves, they can. We have found that there has been no uptake of that program because of the success of GMIS. The deferrals of these projects are because of the pace of growth and development and the applications. It's not these deferrals slowing applications, it's that the pace of development over the last year has been slower, so the need for the timing of the infrastructure is recommended to be deferred. There is discussion about whether or not it should be perhaps a 1 or a 2 year deferral, but none of these lands are actually slowing down the pace of development because of the GMIS or the recommended timing. It's intended as a just-in-time delivery system, so we're only paying for the infrastructure and building it at the time the housing needs it. And these are pieces of infrastructure that have to go ahead of they're ponds and pipes, so they have to go ahead of when the units are being built. So there are other options, but GMIS has been, we think, a successful tool.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. Is there any risk that it's the chicken or the egg kind of thing, that potentially we're not getting the applications because we haven't slated it for development or infrastructure earlier, or do you think that's not necessarily an issue?
I'll go with staff.
Through the chair, so there are pretty good open lines of communication with the development industry, not only through this mechanism, but this is done as an annual process with interviews to ensure the timing of this infrastructure matches their needs of when the applications are actually coming forward. So I don't get a sense that this is causing that.
Counselor?
Okay, that's good to hear. The only other thing I want to just bring up again is the option for financing. So I listened to a different municipality in southwestern Ontario where their staff brought a recommendation for us saying, we're not going to have the funding for the growth that we need. We think that we should go forward, get the financing. It may drop our credit rating from AAA to AA, but they said it's still good, and we are going to drive the growth in this city and not it be determined elsewhere. I think that is a conversation for council at some point to make that kind of high-level strategic decision. I don't know whether we're operating on something that previous council said, that we don't want to consider this. So I guess through you, I'm asking to staff, is that something that's gonna have to be council-led to say, hey, we want the full range of options, available to us? Are we being driven by, more fiscally conservative policies of past councils, or is this something that would be staff-driven and would come to council at some point in the future?
I'll go with staff.
Thank you very much through the chair. That's a great question. In terms of the financing, as you can see in this report here, we are currently at approximately 37% when we look at the 10-year average debt servicing cost ratio relative to the revenues coming in the door. So that's a fairly high percent. Our recommended maximum will be 25%, which is consistent with our financial statement reporting and annual repayment limit. So we're over that cap. What I can say is that we are aggressively issuing debt and assigning debt where possible. And we're trying to do it in a responsible way so we can continue to ensure we maintain that AAA credit rating that we've had now for 30 plus years. But yes, to answer your question, we do issue debt where we think it's responsible. There is the trade-off as well. As you begin to issue more debt, there is debt servicing costs. So there's the cost to borrow, which again, we're obviously taking into consideration as well. Thank you.
Counselor?
I'll leave it there for now, thanks.
I'll look for other comments or questions. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Yeah, just a comment. I appreciate the work staff's done on this. I support it moving forward. I agree. The most important tool we have is pacing. And as much as we have a lot of work to do and a lot of growth to consider where the servicing moves, I think there's also quite a number of Londoners who would not be upset if we just slowed the pacing a little bit, particularly when it comes to road and sewer infrastructure and their ability to get around that. I would say I would not entertain for a moment taking on debt to service growth and put our AAA credit rating down to a AA or a single A. That costs the taxpayer far more in the long run because we don't get as preferable a borrowing rate at a lower credit rating than we do at the AAA rating. That's actually asking all of the taxpayers to subsidize growth more so than the GMIS approach where we are trying to align growth paying for growth. I certainly agree with both Mr. Wallace and Mr. Levin that the province has frankly failed to still make us whole. Those discussions have to continue about how that funding comes forward. And I think that those discussions are happening not just in London, but in municipalities across the province, and probably Councillor Hopkins probably knows they're probably happening at AMO too, I suspect. So there is a role here that requires the senior levels of government to step in and deliver on their promise to make us whole. That should not be something that we try and achieve by placing an additional burden on existing property taxpayers to pay for more growth by putting it through debt financing. I will also say I think that the finance staff and all of our staff across all the divisions have also done a very good job when there has been an end of year surplus at looking at ways to avoid issuing debt and using some of that surplus to move projects forward that otherwise would have to be debt financed. So although the debt financing levels are getting towards the higher end of where they should be, we have been able to do some projects, moving them ahead without taking on debt, and that is also something that I think staff deserves some thanks and credit for. So I don't want to get into mucking about with issuing debt and putting our credit rating lower when I think that slowing or speeding things up by a year or two and listening to our industry partners as to when they're ready to bring applications forward can help manage this problem a little bit better until we see those senior levels of government resolve their commitment to make us whole.
Thank you, Councillor Frank.
Thank you. Just a couple questions for you to staff. Given that the pace of the low density housing is slower and we just expanded the urban growth boundary, I just wanted to check if that will negatively impact our financial modeling, or does GMIS and the DC master plan account for the policy misalignment?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair. So the ministry has not yet approved the urban growth boundary expansion, and it is still before them to be reviewed. The DC bylaw is a 20-year study, and council approved the growth projections to be used as the basis for that last fall. The interaction between the two is that if the type of housing changes over time, there will be periodic reviews of supply of land. So we could report back with how many years of supply there are in future, but it's also intended as a long-term plan. So what would end up happening is if a boundary is approved that takes longer than 30 years to build out, then it doesn't impact the DC rate, because the DC separately is identifying a 20-year supply of land based on those assumptions, and then using GMS as the tool to adjust year over year.
Councillor.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And then I have another question. So we heard from the gallery that developers don't pay development charges; they passed along to the buyer. And the alternative being that we finally get funding from the province to make us whole, which is taxpayer money, or we rely on property taxes to move growth forward. And I personally would rather see the people buying the houses pay the costs instead of spreading it across our property tax base, because it sounds like those are the two main areas where that is going to be paid from. So I'm wondering, I know that we're creatures of the province, but is there a certain point where we can, do something beyond advocacy to let the province know that, at a certain point, we need to collect development charges because we want growth to pay for growth? And, I don't want to say suing the province, but at a certain point, is there a way that we can do something beyond it? Because I think we're getting into a tricky pickle where we have tens of millions of dollars that essentially we're on the hook for. And I'm wondering at what point can we do something beyond sending letters to the province? And I guess my question is mostly towards staff. Have we heard any movement in regards to making us whole, or is cricket still?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, at the current time, there isn't a lot of other opportunities that we have besides that advocacy. We try to do it at all levels, of course. We're doing it at the staff level. We're doing that in any of the associations that we're part of, and we know that you're doing that at the level of AMO and even at council and mayoral level. So I feel that that's important, and it really is the one of the very few things that we can do right now to be able to put the importance of DCs forward. So really that we are limited there, and the best thing that we have and the best thing we can do is having this GMIS process to allow us to move these projects and be able to respond to what we're seeing in the marketplace, and ensure that we're not building infrastructure before it's needed. Because as mentioned, we really try to focus on that just-in-time delivery, because if we have an asset that's sitting there and it's not being used, then that could be its funding, and that could be available to be able to provide infrastructure in a different area where development is occurring. So I think the most important thing we can do is just try to be able to manage what we can through our GMIS process.
Councillor.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. And I agree. It appears we can only really delay projects, increase property taxes, which would be terrible, borrow more, which would have higher debt servicing costs, and just push it on to next generations, which I don't think is fair. Use reserve funds, which would be terrible, and then pretty much advocate. So I appreciate that staff are bringing this to us and the work that they do on GMS, because really none of the other options are viable or working at this point. So thank you.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to follow up on supporting this recommendation, I would definitely encourage the committee to do so. It is a tool that we have. A lot of municipalities do not even have this tool, how we can look into the future and adjust accordingly. I do want to put my AMO hat on here too. It is a big conversation, and it has been for the past couple years at AMO, the need to be kept whole as a municipality. We were promised that we would be kept whole. So for us on council and throughout municipalities, we need to understand the importance of that advocacy, putting that pressure on the provincial government to make them realize that we cannot do it on our own. And I think the more we have these conversations around DCs, they're complicated, the more we will understand. Not all municipalities have DCs either. So it's just trying to understand what's going on in our municipality and working with the provincial government on the need to be kept whole, because we're not. I really appreciate the public participation meeting here, comments. I think we can all agree that we have to manage our shortfalls. This is a great tool. I want to thank staff for bringing this information forward. It's important that we get it, understand it. I think it is flexible as well, which is really important. The concerns around the reserve fund, I think, is always something that we should always have to ask those questions here at committee and understand that. So I would encourage the committee to support the recommendation in front of us.
Thank you. Just looking around, Councillor Preble.
Thank you, Sir the Chair, to the staff. If you could explain to me again, at the audit committee, we receive annually investments done by the developers that city assumes. We are currently, in the last 3 years, roughly, certainly over $150 million. And it includes the sanitary pipe, storm sewer, etc. How is this kind of calculated? Was this tracked already kind of before our term of the council? And how is this evaluated? Because yes, we are in the whole 250, but on the other hand, we assumed roughly 160, 170 from the developers that they developed and they included, and we assumed it as a city.
I'll go to staff.
Through the chair. So there's a couple of different pieces here that will just maybe just raise your attention to. So there's, of course, when you're building out in new infrastructure, we have what we call a lot of times major infrastructure. So that's infrastructure that is included in the development charges study. So it'll usually be your larger size pipes or your arterial roads, your very large roads. And then the developer will be responsible for some of the costs and associated with what we call the local servicing. So that would be the smaller pipes that are within their roadways. That would be like your local road that would be in front of a single-family home. So the pieces that has been flagged as far as the infrastructure that would be assumed by the city. For the most part, those are pieces of infrastructure that were paid for and constructed by the developer and now been passed over to the city for ownership as part of the subdivision process.
Counselor?
So thank you. So the way I understand it is that the report that we received, $160, $170 million, that does not include, it's the smaller things, not the larger ones that are included in the DC charges that we do charge the developers for. Is that correct?
Go to staff.
Through the chair, yes, that's accurate. So it includes like the smaller streets and infrastructure within those new subdivisions.
Counselor?
Thank you. No more questions.
Look for other comments or questions. We have a motion moved and seconded, and we'll call the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Moving on to 3.3, this is regarding a parking provisions update. I'll look for a motion to open the public participation meeting. Councillor Stevenson, seconded by Councillor Cuddy, and we will call the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Wallace, please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to welcome the Deputy Mayor back to the office. It looks pretty cool with those sunglasses on, to be honest with you. So, really briefly, I circulated the report to my members, and we are supportive of the recommendation that's here in front of us. In a nutshell, we think it reflects reality of what is happening on the street. Most of our members were developing at the one parking spot per unit anyways, but it just makes it all the changes in here reflect what we believe is actually happening in the marketplace. And the only other, and it's sort of related in a sense, but just to give you a heads up, coming back because it's related to parking, your zoning bylaw has a requirement for installation of units to be able to support EVs. Bill 98 takes that power away from municipalities, so we'll be looking at changes to the current zoning bylaw for that to happen. So just a little heads up on what's happening with that. We'll be coming back to you. Okay, thank you. We're supportive of the report. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Look for other speakers. Please, sir, give us your name. You have 5 minutes.
Sorry, Zach Corbin. I'm hoping I'm speaking in the right spot. I recently purchased a home at 320 Horton Street East. I was looking to go about widening the driveway. I kind of ran into some administrative hurdles. I am zoned arterial commercial. So what I was hoping to just be a simple city process of applying to widen my driveway has turned into being zoned arterial commercial. I need to go through the full commercial process, which equates to a $1,300 application, which may or may not be approved. If you look at the whole street, I am the only current piece of grass on that block. So everyone else has been approved, so I guess I'm just looking for a pathway there to get that done, where currently there doesn't seem to be one. It was over the last 6 months, I've been bounced between staff and whatnot. Oh, possible, not possible. Oh, possible, but this. Oh, we don't apply for that. So I'm just kind of looking for a pathway forward for there. It has been indicated that staff is looking at doing that. I guess I'm just looking for a timeline and hopefully possibly an exemption in my case. Apologies.
So just so you know, we're not dealing with specifics at this particular meeting, so you're going to have to take that up with your counselor and staff offline.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Thanks. Look for any other speakers. Please, sir, give us your name. You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon. Mohammed Musa. Couple couple of things I just wanted to mention just to start is, it was a very extensive and hard to follow report, but there is one thing, there are a few things in the report where it refers to different sections that, you know, what should be replaced and what shouldn't. But within the bylaw, the proposed bylaw, 4.19 sub 10 sub A should be labeled residential development, and I think there is probably just a transcription error rather than driveway widths, just for the purpose of you know, the proposed bylaw going through. The subheadings don't necessarily mean the legislation is that, but it should refer to it. Okay, so in regard to the one parking spot per unit for, you know, higher density development, I think that should be a developer decision. I mean, we're told that there's vacancy because of not enough parking spots. I think the majority of that is because of affordability. A parking spot in a high residential underground parking spot is $60,000 to $90,000 per spot. Where is that going to come from? You know, if somebody doesn't require a spot, it's going to be into the added rents. I think that should be left alone. And with respect to that, let the developer, he, she, or in the case of a corporation, it should be able to make that decision. That's a business decision that he, she, or it should make. In terms of driveway widths, having a huge issue with 9 meters across a 12-meter lot, frontage lot. Question that most of this is silent on is, if I put in a new driveway, does that entitle me to a curb cut? The curb cut takes away from street parking, and everybody's complaining about, oh, if there isn't enough parking, it's going to be on the street. Well, if you're taking a 12-meter frontage lot and taking 9 meters out of that, you're left with 3 meters, approximately 9.76 feet. You're not going to fit anything there. Hardscaping. If I can cover, and I'll give you not a hypothetical, but a real-world example. I have a house in a non-HCD area, and if I was to add another an ARU, if I wanted another driveway, I could ask for it. And again, the bylaw doesn't say as of right, so I'm not sure whether it's an application where it's rubber stamped or whether it's an application that you have to go through, you know, the whole process of what City Hall entails you to do. So the bylaws with respect to a curb cut are different than side yard and boulevard parking. Learned a lot about this between 1994 and 1999 when parking enforcement was downstairs. Don't ask me how, I did. So now you've got, okay, out of that 12 meters, 9 meters is taken by driveway. I can put a 4-foot walkway. So now you've got 5.7, 5.8 feet for easements for utilities, for water runoff, and that's going to be the next point. With the hardscaping that you're allowing people to do in this case,
30 seconds.
You're going to burden the stormwater system. So you're creating more problems than you are solving by doing this. And I know we want more parking for ARUs, we want more parking for that sort of thing, but we are creating one problem in trying to solve another. Thank you.
Thank you. Look for any other speakers. Also, clerk, if there's anyone online? I don't see anyone else approaching the microphone. Look for a motion to close the PPM. Councillor Stevenson, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lewis. We'll call the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, I'll put this on the floor for committee members. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. I see Councillor Cuddy is seconding it. So we got a motion moved and seconded. Do you want to speak to it, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, briefly, although I may save some time to come back at the end if necessary. I'm going to be really quick here. I know the answer. I think it's actually in the report, but through you to staff, curb cuts are not contemplated in this. This is expansion on private property only, correct?
I'll go to staff.
Through the chair, that's correct. The curb cuts are regulated by the streets bylaw.
Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. So this requires people to angle a driveway for a side spot, if that's what they're gonna do, if they need to add a spot. Frankly, we created a problem when we changed the parking ratio down to 0.5. We tried the market will decide, and we've seen what's happened, and we've seen it very clearly at this committee, with hundreds of residents coming to PPMs over the last couple of years, talking to us about the lack of parking in high-density developments. So absolutely, I'm going to be supportive of going back to 1-to-1. And I know that many of our local developers actually do 1 to 1.25, so that they're accommodating the need for extra parking spaces for some units or for visitors. And I applaud them for doing that, but that's not everybody. And I also think where we have to underline a couple things. I really appreciate the work the staff has done. I have no problem with the recommendation to provide some exempt heritage conservation districts. I think with the small lot sizes we see in a number of those, in particular, you wouldn't be able to meet the meter distances anyway. So I think preserving those, obviously the work that was done on the Western University near campus neighborhood and excluding that from these changes. I know that was something Councillor Trussow raised, and I'm supportive of that being in this report, and very supportive of generally where we're going here in all ways, shapes, and sizes. There are exemptions for affordable housing developments and for those developments that are happening along rapid transit corridors. So I think what we're doing here is making a responsible decision to say, hey, in some places, in some types of builds, we can have under 1-to-1 parking. In fact, before we changed the rules to 0.5, we used to actually get lots of parking justification reports that came forward on affordable housing projects in particular that said, and staff supported recommendations that said, yeah, 0.65 is okay here, or 0.75 is okay here because it's an affordable housing build and we don't need 1-to-1 there. So I think we've got some very responsible exemptions. We are putting the onus in terms of the driveway widths piece onto the property owners. We're not asking the taxpayers to give up public land or to subsidize it. The owners will have to pay for a driveway widening. They'll have to get their permit. They'll have to go through all of those things if it's appropriate for them. I'm not particularly concerned, with all due respect, around the issue of stormwater runoff. We know in new subdivisions where wider driveways may be desired, developers will plan for those accordingly. But we're also not going to see tens of thousands of applications come forward for these. And partly because of the factor that I just spoke of, the cost. If there's not a need, nobody's going to voluntarily say, I'm going to spend $8,000 or $10,000 to widen my driveway. If they don't need it, they're not going to bring it forward. And so in existing residential neighborhoods, I think we will see targeted spots where homeowners, particularly those with ARUs, but not exclusively, there might be families with multi-generational living situations, those kind of things where they will bring forward an application. But I hardly think our path to approval counter is going to be stampeded by 10,000 applications for driveway widening across the city. So I think staff have struck a very good balance here in recommending the exemptions and bringing forward something that we should move forward with as a council. And I hope this is something that we can be moving quickly on and get it done.
Thank you. I'll look for other speakers. Counselor Stevenson.
Thank you. I support the return to one-to-one. My questions are mostly with regard to the exceptions. Because if properties don't meet the width requirements anyway, we don't need to make an exception. It'll be ruled out anyway. So I'm just wondering why we would be putting this in, given that we want to have housing and we want to have ARUs, and if properties in these districts were able to do it and had the land to be able to do the parking, and we already have heritage rules and they'd have to do a heritage, an application for a heritage permit anyway, why we would be ruling it out blanket without giving the possibility in some locations. So just through you to staff.
Through the chair, I think what I understand the question to be is an exemption, the exemptions that we've provided through the current bylaw that's proposed with respect to near campus neighborhoods and heritage conservation districts. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I'm saying if we took out the exception for heritage, that's what I would lean towards. Why not just allow those few properties that could have it to have that option?
I'll go with staff.
Through the chair, when we reviewed the parking, proposed parking provision changes, heritage conservation districts have certain requirements under the Ontario Heritage Act. And to have a bylaw that, heritage conservation districts are very specific in terms of not allowing for front yard parking, for instance, not allowing for side, certain scenarios that would be permitted through this particular bylaw change. The issue is that would then put it in at odds, basically. The zoning bylaw and the HCD would then be at odds and could come up with legal issues, legal challenges, other possible issues. And so because of that, it was determined that the HCD should be exempt for that reason. We didn't want to cause any further grief in the future, basically, and have any issues from a legal perspective.
Counselor.
Thank you. I don't want to question that. And at the same time, if we have this bylaw that we do, and we've got the Heritage Conservation Plan, does the plan not take priority over this? Like we wouldn't be putting it, we wouldn't be speaking against it. We would just not be putting exceptions and just allow it to operate under the restrictions that it has already.
Go with staff.
Through the chair, as the city, we can't enact a bylaw that's in contravention with the HCDs, and that's part of the reason that obviously we've recommended the exemption.
Counselor.
Okay, so my other question, I'll maybe circle back to staff around that between now and council, because I would like to understand it better. The little bit that I looked at, there's lots of reference to parking within the heritage and exceptions. It usually says, if at all possible, we wouldn't allow this, but it allows for possibility. Why are we doing the Western University near campus neighborhood and not the Fanshawe one?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, that was the direction of council.
Counselor.
Thank you. So I know why Western. I don't know why not Fanshawe as well, because I don't believe we directed on heritage, and that's come through. So I just wondered if staff had thoughts on the Fanshawe.
Through the chair, as part of the recommendation clause, it was only directed that Western be looked at.
Counselor.
Oh, any concerns about adding Fanshawe as well?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, this whole recommendation was at the request of council, so it's not something that staff looked at.
Counselor.
I see hands. I'll leave it. It just feels inconsistent to do one instead of the other. I'm open to hearing from my colleagues as to why we would do one and not the other.
I'll go with Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. Before this was brought forward, I had conversations with both Councillor Trussow and Councillor Cuddy. And the realities between Western and its near-campus neighborhood and Fanshawe and its near-campus neighborhood are considerably different. And it was felt that Western was the school where the exceptions were needed. There's a lot more differentiation in both the demographic at Fanshawe, the length of stay at Fanshawe, and in consultation with Councillor Cuddy, we chose not to bring it forward because we think that it's actually needed to allow some driveway widening around Fanshawe where we have more off-campus residential occupation and students who are driving rather than students who are taking the bus. They're more mature students in some cases as people go back to retraining at Fanshawe, and they are utilizing a different source of getting around and how they're living in the neighborhood. So that's why Fanshawe was not part of the council recommendation, and that's why I would not support putting it back in again today.
Councillor?
Thank you, I appreciate that. Truthfully, I don't want to add Fanshawe. I don't understand why we have Western here as an exception. But I do feel like consistency, and I hear what you're saying, but I hear a lot of concerns about parking in that area as well. And there's a lot of illegal parking. This would allow us to at least have an approval process to go through to be able to look at it. And open to, I understand the ward councillor maybe is in support of this, but it just seems, I don't know, that we're giving a different treatment to one area of the city when we have issues with illegal parking and needing parking for residences in, it seems like, all areas of the city.
Councillor Frank? Councillor Frank?
Thank you. Yes, sorry, I was getting my computer on. Yeah, again, not a member of this committee, but I don't plan on supporting this at council, being consistent with past votes, and also just having read the report and seeing all of the concerns from the various staff departments, forestry, heritage, urban planning. So I won't be supporting this, but I am wondering, through you to staff, is there a way for us to make a requirement for the use of permeable pavement or gravel if they do get if they are able to move forward?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, there may be changes made to the zoning bylaw to allow for a portion of permeable surface or fully permeable surfaces, but it would require more than just adding a clause. I think there would need to be additional changes to definitions, things like that, through the zoning bylaw, so it would be more than I think was anticipated through the original circulation of this notice.
Councillor?
Thank you. Yes. So then it sounds more like I've heard from colleagues that they want this to move forward as quickly as possible. So probably a referral is not desired, but perhaps a future direction to staff to add that in the zoning bylaw would be great. And then the other question I had is, are developers still able to request special provisions moving forward? So if they wanted to build an apartment building with 0.75, will they still be allowed to?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, yes, that's still an avenue available for all development applications.
Councillor?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll look further. Councillor Ferrar?
Thanks, Chair, and through you. So I remember this coming up, and I remember the way I was voting on the last one. I wasn't necessarily supportive of it. I do, between Councillor Stevenson's comments and myself, we don't necessarily align, but she's right on this one. I have a near-campus neighborhood in part of my ward has a near-campus neighborhood, and I do see that there are concerns with parking. However, I'm still not supportive because I did make the arguments at the last cycle of this about the permeability, about the stormwater and the issues that may lie therein. However, I do see the motion that we're going, the direction that we're going today, and I do support not expanding it in the near campus neighborhood area of my ward, just because I feel like as we start picking up our public transitability, as people start using alternative modes of transportation, we might see some easing off of the car centricity that we have. And I'm just hoping that, making some permanent changes today may directly result in having those permanent changes still existing, you know, tomorrow, once we do have those other modes of transportation. I do want to go to the delegate who spoke about 320 Hamilton or Horton. He has reached out to me, and I do see that this is focusing on the expansion of private property parking, and it's not focusing on the expansion, or it doesn't have really a focus on the public aspects. The delegate has a very specific, I guess, issue that has arisen because his parking is fully on city property. And he is looking to expand his driveway, but it doesn't fit within the parameters of this boulevard parking amendment. And my understanding is that there could be something coming forward with an internal administrative process to help the delegate in his quest to expand on his parking. So I just wanted to go to staff and ask, when would we be able to expect that internal administrative process come through to help the delegate, so he doesn't have to come through committee here and go through the process?
Counselor, as I said to the person who spoke, I prefer, we're going to stick with the issue at hand and not get into specifics. You're welcome to confer with staff with that question off the floor, but at this time, let's just stick with the bylaw in front of us.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Is there any way I could just get staff to I do know that they have an internal process. I was expecting it to come on this one, on this motion.
Okay, I'll go to staff on generalities. If there is some sort of additional process in the works that would tie into this item that we have before us, I can entertain that one.
Through the chair, so for that particular applicant, they would have to go through the process that's established in the Boulevard Parking Bylaw currently, which would be bringing a report, a staff report to PEC and council for approval of that boulevard parking. And then in the future, we will have to do kind of a fulsome review of the Boulevard Parking Bylaw to establish that administrative process, but we can kind of manage that particular case ahead of time.
Councillor?
All right, thank you for giving me that leniency to ask that question. I do have a follow-up on when we'd expect that, but if the chair deems that out of order, I'll take the chair's recommendation.
Well, for generalities, again, I'm trying to keep it to the generalities thing. If there is something in the works, if you can give us an approximate time frame of when that would happen.
Through the chair, after receiving direction on this report, I would assume maybe by Q2 of next year, we'll be able to have a review and a new process.
Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. That's it.
Councillor Stevenson?
Thank you. I just want to follow up again on the heritage exceptions. So on page 211, just as an example, in Wortley Village, Old South, section 8.3.6.3, it says front yard or boulevard parking is discouraged unless unavoidable and permitted by zoning regulations. So I'm just wondering if we are to pass this as it is with the exception of properties located within a heritage conservation district, does this now mean that front yard and boulevard parking would not be permitted by zoning regulations?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, that would still be permitted just under the existing regulations that currently exist.
Councillor?
So I just want to be clear, so what is coming to us recommended for this committee to approve will not impact the ability to be able to have the front yard or boulevard parking per this conservation district plan?
Go staff.
Through the chair, would refer to the previous provisions, which would then likely require if there was something, potentially a minor variance or something to that effect in order to review.
Councillor?
Okay, I just want to understand what I'm voting on here. So if a property in a heritage conservation district wanted to have front yard or boulevard parking, what changes, how does it work now, and how will it be different after we pass this?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, the current bylaw does not permit front yard parking at all, so the provisions would continue to apply for an HCD. So therefore, if a property in the Heritage Conservation District wanted to include front yard parking, they would need to obtain a minor variance or something to that effect in order to be able to park in their front yard.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. And then if we were to remove the exception, what would a property owner need to do? No, that's not the right question. So a minor variance is needed, and is there also a heritage alteration permit as well?
I'll go with staff.
That's correct, a heritage alteration permit is also required.
Counselor, I'm just going to remind you, you're kind of coming up to the end of your time.
All right, okay. And so if we did not have, if we took that exception out, it would still have to go through heritage for them to have what we're offering here, correct?
I'll go with staff.
Through the chair, yes, that means that they would need to go through they would still need to receive a heritage alteration permit. However, the issue would be that front yard parking is also at odds with a lot of these HCD provisions. And staff, I think, would be, have faced with an issue in that the bylaw would permit it, however, the HCD does not.
Counselor?
And the HCD overrides, correct?
Go with staff.
I believe yes.
Counselor?
So I support this. I would prefer to take the exceptions out. I don't know if any of my colleagues feel the same way. I'm going to leave it for today, but I would prefer to not have the exceptions.
Okay, I'll look for any other speakers to this. Counselor Rahman?
Thank you, and through you. So I'm trying to understand, with the bylaw written the way it's written, there's no way to vote on the high and medium density one-to-one and not the rest of it?
Go with staff.
Through the chair, they would need to have a whole new bylaw because it's all one package.
Counselor?
Thank you, and I'd be interested in separating the bylaw for that reason. My main reason is I think there are still some unanswered questions when it comes to the rest of the residential components, like we discussed here with the heritage issues. I personally wasn't supportive of the one-to-one on the single family and other forms of housing. Or sorry, not the one-to-one, but the driveway width extension, mainly because it does create too much hard surface in the area. I do worry that it will impact our tree canopy. I do see, and as it's in the report stated, that it creates some conflict with pedestrians with that extra driveway width and sight lines and things like that. I wanted to ask a question, though, about the affordable housing agreements and how that comes into consideration for the one-to-one parking. So what I'm trying to understand is I can understand that the one-to-one parking would be exempt if it was an affordable housing project. But if it's just a project that has affordable housing agreements on it, so 4 units that are affordable housing, how would you determine what the ratio of parking change would be outside of the one-to-one?
Go with staff.
Through the chair, it would be, for lack of a better term, prorated based on the number of affordable housing units.
Counselor?
Okay, so let's say 4 to 10 in a building that has, 300 units, right? And let's say there's somewhere between 4 and 10 affordable units. Are we talking about considering, a 0.9, a 0.7? Like, how would we make that, how would we determine that?
I'll go with staff.
I'm sorry, can the counselor, through the chair, can the counselor possibly repeat that? I was having a discussion, sorry.
Thank you, and through you. So just to clarify, okay, I'll say if it was 300 units, let's say 10 of them were affordable, what would be the size of the adjustment on the ratio?
I'll go staff.
Through the chair, actually, no, it's a full-on exemption. It is not prorated. There is nothing in the bylaw that says anything about it being prorated. It is, if any component of affordable housing is in it, it is exempt from those provisions.
Counselor?
Thank you. So 1 unit of affordable housing would exempt on a 200-unit, let's say, building, and let's say the applicant wanted 120 parking spaces. 1 unit would then exempt them and make that applicable?
I'll go staff.
That's correct. Through you, Chair, that's correct.
Mr. Mathers, did you want to jump in?
Through the chair, that wasn't the intention. We're just getting some legal interpretation of the language that we have in the bylaw currently. So if the direction is that that's not an appropriate strategy, which I would suggest that it's not, then we would be cleaning up the bylaw language when we bring it forward to council. We have some time because this isn't going till the council meeting in July. So, and any other permutations of bylaws that folks feel like if you want it broken out into different components so that you're able to vote on that separately at council, we're happy to be able to provide that. But my suggestion would be us refining the language in the bylaw that we bring forward to look at a prorating for related to affordable housing.
Councilor Rahman.
Thank you, and I'm happy to continue this conversation offline and look to an amended bylaw that would help to straighten out some of this. Because I do think it's important that we put that in that framework together before we approve it when it comes to the high and medium residential units. I don't want the development community think that we're now reintroducing bonusing in a sense by doing this, because that's kind of how it feels. So just wanted to bring that up. And back to the driveway consideration, I would personally prefer, and I see in the urban design guidelines, that it's more about, it also mentions the driveway form matching the current form. So for instance, if we had something permeable and you had something hardscape beside it, from a design perspective, that also may not look great. So not supportive of it as it is, but I also want that to be considered. If we're considering permeable, I think the look of it also would matter. I think it would change the form within some of our subdivisions otherwise.
Councilor Hopkins.
Yeah, thank you. And I think my first question was answered, that this is going to go to the next council meeting, not tomorrow. I'm listening to the conversation here at committee, which I really do appreciate. The more I listen, the more concerned I am becoming, in particular with the bylaw itself, the way it's written. I represent subdivisions in Ward 9. I don't think I've ever seen an application that had less than 1-to-1 ratio. I'm glad to hear that it's up to the developer if they want 0.5, that could be part of the application. So I'm really not sure. I don't think I have a clear understanding right now exactly how this is all going to pan out. My concerns, I think I heard from the public, it could be creating a few more problems that we really don't get right now. In particular, the hard surfacing and the tree canopy, things like that can really add to the neighborhood. I heard loud and clear, and I appreciate the councillors coming forward with wanting to make it better, but I'm not exactly sure how we're doing it. It's very unclear. So I'm glad there's going to be a little bit more work on the bylaw as this comes forward. I know we heard loud and clear. I hear it too. Neighborhoods want less parking on the street. And I understand the intent of the changes, and some of them are good, but not everything. So I think there's a lot more work that I need to do to understand the bylaw as it comes forward to the next council meeting.
Thank you. Look for Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. So we've already established that the streets bylaw and curb cuts are not at play here. So there's no change in the boulevard width. So based on that, I'd actually like to understand from staff how they think this is impacting the tree canopy. It's not within the city's power to mandate people to plant trees on their private property. We've established that this is the widening of private driveways on private land. So I actually find the comments that I'm hearing about tree canopy impact to be without merit, because we can't force tree planting on private land. And there's no change to the city boulevard, so there's no change in opportunity to plant in the city boulevard. So I'd like staff to comment, please.
I'll go with staff.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. There won't be an impact on the right of way, and that's the program that the city has for being able to planting trees. That is where we chiefly plant trees, of course, and if there's less frontage of a property, yes, that will limit the ability to plant trees or any other type of greenscaping. But from the perspective of like the city and our, for the most part, what we're dealing with as part of the development process, it wouldn't impact the right of way.
Okay, I'll go back to the Deputy Mayor. You're kind of coming up on the end of your time.
That's okay. I'm going to end it there because I think that addresses it. I do want to say I appreciate Councillor Rahman's question about the affordable housing exemption because that wasn't certainly my intent when I introduced the motion to have this reviewed. So I appreciate staff tackling that one. Quite honestly, it wasn't one that I caught in the reading of the report. So I appreciate Councillor Rahman reading it, and if staff can tidy that up prior to council, that would be great.
Councillor Frank.
Thank you. Yes, I actually just wanted to read the section from urban forestry onto the record because I don't actually think it completely aligns with what was just shared. So from forestry.
So point of order, Chair.
Point of order, go ahead.
The report is already on the public record. The councillor does not need to read it to us.
Councillor, that is a good point, but if you'd like to comment on their comments, I'll give you some latitude, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. So I'll comment on their comments. Forestry indicates, I'm paraphrasing because I don't want to read it, indicates that the proposed amendment would compete with permeable planting spaces for trees, so it would remove spaces for trees to exist in private yards, which provide a significant opportunity. And many private yards, a significant portion of their area still belongs to the city. And so there are opportunities within front yards to put trees. Additionally, if there are existing trees in people's front yards and someone wants to expand their driveway, potentially they might want to remove said tree in order to expand their driveway. And there are a number of other things that I won't read, but are included in the report from forestry in regards to how this would create significant conflicts with having space for trees. So it does actually indicate that it would impact tree planting and our urban forestry cover.
Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to make a response to my comments around the hard surfacing and the trees. I represent a lot of subdivisions in Ward 9. We're starting to see smaller land, smaller lots. It's that simple. The frontages become smaller, the harder spaces become more, and less opportunities for landscaping. That's my perception of a lot of subdivisions that I've seen develop in Ward 9.
Thank you. Look for further comments or questions. We have a motion moving and seconded. I'll call the vote.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. We have no items for discussion. We do have 5 deferred matters, additional business. We have 2.1 from the consent items that we've moved down to that area. So I will put that on the floor now for committee. Someone would like to move that. Councillor Cuddy?
Yes, Chair, I'll move the staff recommendation.
I get a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor seconds. One conversation. Councillor Stevenson?
I'd just like to vote on C separately.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? So I'll ask the clerk if we're able to vote on C separately, and we can tie the A and B together.
Yep.
Okay, so if there's no other, we can do that. So if there's no other comments or questions, we'll call that vote, and we'll call it A and B, or whichever the clerk prefers.
Yeah, we can do A and B first.
We'll call A and B first, then we'll call C.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
Okay, now we'll call C.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 4-1.
Okay, thank you. We do have one item for confidential matters. I'll look for a motion to move in camera by Councillor Cuddy, seconded by Councillor Stevenson, and we will call that vote.
Councillor Lewis votes yes.
Closing the vote, the motion carries 5-0.
So I'll ask the clerk to prepare the room for in camera.
Chair, while you're adjusting the room.
We're good to go.
Okay, we are back in public session. I'll go to Councillor Stevenson to report out.
Thank you. Progress was made for the item for which we went in camera.
Thank you. I think that exhausts our items on the agenda. I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Stevenson, second by Councillor Cuddy. We'll call a hand vote on that.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone.